Okay. So my name is Rebecca Newbern, and I am with the Richmond Grows Seed Lending Library in the unceded territory of the Ohlone people. And that is currently known as like the San Francisco Bay Area. And I co-founded the Richmond Grows Seed Lending Library, and also did a lot with the Start a Seed Library, kind of like the sister seed library list, and created the seedlibraries.net resources. So when I started Richmond Grows Seed Library, it was with the intention of love to create one in my own public library, but create it as a replicable model. So I intentionally created the library as for my community, but also can other communities benefit from that and kind of level up really quickly. So I'm hoping that we could do a similar thing with this conversation, is try to figure out what are the best resources to create grow row programs. So Justine and I are just initiating that process ourselves, trying to figure it out. And obviously in community, we're going to create a lot better resources than to groups alone. So we're hoping that you're on this journey with us and can bring your brilliance and inspiration to that. So I'm going to pass it off to Justine. So basically, let me just give a little overview before I do that. So basically, Justine's going to present herself. She's going to talk about her Grow Row program. I'll talk about my Grow Row program in the East Bay. And then we'll have a little bit of time for questions and answers at that period. And then I've created a little worksheet to kind of walk us through the steps. This is just the first of hopefully will be a series of classes. And then I've also created a group that we can join through the Upbeat Seed Libraries Forum, so that if you have questions between classes or ongoing or a year from now, there's a group of people that are specifically doing this work that can kind of help you through that process. And then if anybody has actually done a Grow Row program, we're in the process. I am actively looking for my next co-host for the next class, which is yet to be determined, but we're looking for people that are also kind of in the process of trying to figure this out. So looking for other people to kind of help out. Justine, to you.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning or afternoon to everybody. My name is Justine Hernandez. I'm a librarian here in Tucson on unceded O'odham land, ancestral lands of the Hohokam and home of the Pasquayaqui. I am part of our public library system, which is home to a seed library, the Seed Library of Pima County. And it is a public library-based seed library. And we have graciously benefited from the community Rebecca has helped nurtured with seed libraries and have been able to grow. We are part of a 27 branch countywide system. And yeah, I'm here to share today. But before we get started, I'm going to share my screen now. I want to share our library's land acknowledgement. And this was done in collaboration. It was the library's Many Nations team in partnership with the O'odham and the Pasquayaqui tribes wrote this land acknowledgement. So I'm going to read this quickly. The Pima County Public Library acknowledges the sovereignty of nations, of Native nations, and acknowledges the 22 federally recognized indigenous tribes of the state of Arizona and those who inhabit Pima County. We honor the vast and often unrecognized contributions and sacrifices of indigenous people and are conscious of the ongoing experience of inequality and political invisibility. In partnership with Native nations, PCPL advocates for full access to its education, information, and recreational resources. So thank you. Rebecca reached out and invited me to share with you all about Grow a Row. And to be honest, we haven't done something quite as explicit or called it a Grow a Row, but we have been a seed library since 2012. And like many seed library communities or seed sharing communities, always kind of exploring ways to increase community shared seeds. Many of us get seeds from donations through commercial means, but looking for seeds to get, ideally from seeds that are of the community. This is a relatively newish adventure. I guess when Rebecca reached out, I hadn't, again, explicitly thought of us doing a Grow a Row, but we kind of are in our second year of a Grow Out. And we did try something in 2016 that was more of a seed ambassador program. And we were part of a community garden. Several seed librarians and I were a part of a local network of community gardens, and I've kind of been growing that relationship and kind of decided kind of explored the idea of doing something with them, since kind of recognized this ready-made community. And so we coordinated something in 2016 called the Seed Saving Ambassadors. We worked with a presenter, somebody in the community who kind of had some expertise on gardening. He was a master gardener and had his own gardening business, and was really on board with kind of the seed to seed cycle. And so offered some seed saving workshops. And this was open to folks across the community, but specifically targeting, again, those folks in the community gardens communities. And each community garden here had folks who were kind of the garden coordinator, and they were responsible for communication and bringing people together for work parties and so on. And so we reached out to those folks specifically to help get the word out. And then we offered these trainings and got really excited and gave folks seeds. And we chose sunflower seeds, I think, just because it was something we had. It wasn't really an intentional, really well thought out thing, but we thought everybody loves to grow sunflowers in addition to food crops. And so we shared the seeds with them, and some people got them, some people didn't. We kind of tried to encourage folks to, just for the purposes of maintaining sort of pure seed without worry of cross-pollination, tried to encourage folks to not plant other sunflowers. But what we came to find is gardeners want to plant what gardeners want to plant. And so, and an arrangement sort of like that, it didn't work. And it was, I think, also because it was kind of well thought out in the beginning, we didn't imagine steps and kind of maintaining communication. We didn't have success. And so we kind of reflected on those things, and the things that we really recognized that worked were kind of the relationships we had in our community. And in this instance, it was those folks at the Community Gardens of Tucson. So that was that piece seemed to resonate with us. And again, because of that nature of this already kind of ready-made community, and they already had their capacities for communicating with one another. And we did offer the training, which I think was helpful and got at least those kind of initial ambassadors pretty excited. But I think the scale of it was probably too large for our first sort of attempt. And again, that piece where not everybody was on board with growing what we wanted to share. And that was important because we didn't want cross-pollination. And we also didn't kind of have pieces of information to share along the way, or ways of, or anything in place to reach out. We did have ways, but we just didn't really follow through with like staying in touch with folks. And then that, again, that seed selection, and kind of reflecting back, thinking probably should have selected something easy like a bean so that to kind of eliminate that worry of cross-pollination. So we hadn't done anything since then, and that was in 2016. Our community has done a handful of one seeds, which I hope folks tuned in here have also, if they're interested, kind of participated in some of the skill sharing around one seeds that Rebecca has coordinated. But that's kind of a bigger endeavor as well. And so more recently, last year, since 2016, some of the library branches actually have been creating their own library campus and library spaces, gardens. And that's been a really wonderful opportunity. They don't all coincide with the branches that have seed libraries, but typically the branches that have seed libraries do have gardens, and we've kind of been using them as demonstration spaces, and just not only for the community, but for internally for our staff. And we are kind of a large library system, and we have about 16 branch locations that have seeds in them for folks to browse through. And so lots of staff involved, and we're part of a public library system. So the people who are on the team of the seed library generally aren't coming to it as gardeners necessarily, or seed savers. And so kind of having these gardens on our library campuses has really been a great way to help folks on the team become more familiar and comfortable with gardening and the whole seed to seed process. And so in 2022, we had more libraries. At this point, we probably had about 6 libraries with garden spaces. And we had been already kind of doing some seed saving among our branches, different, not really in any kind of coordinated fashion, just kind of whatever folks were wanting to grow from the seed library seeds, they'd grow and we'd get some seeds back and process them. And actually in 2022, together as a team, we grew out seeds of different varieties for a total of about 3,300 packets of seeds to contribute to the seed library. So that was kind of exciting. And so this sort of auspicious moment came to us. We received a really lovely donation of a very regional variety of okra from Yuma, Arizona, which is just south of us, and also a really super hot, super dry place. And it was a quantity that maybe would have been about 5 packets of seeds if packaged. And we were kind of excited about it, had never had it in our collection. And so we decided to divvy it up and share it with those library gardens. And these are some examples of the library gardens. They're all container gardens. Nobody's got any in-ground gardens. And some of them even use, you'll see here, self-watering containers, just using those 5-gallon buckets. So a number of different community gardens. We planted those okra and got to enjoy them. We grew enough that we were able to eat some of the okra for the few folks that actually grow okra to eat. We primarily grow it for seed and because it's such a beautiful plant, but some folks do enjoy eating it. So we saved some to eat, to share with staff and even with the public. In addition to the library gardens, we do have a really wonderful relationship with a community garden that's in close to one of the libraries. That's a seed library location, and they've been tremendously supportive in our gardening efforts and kind of helping train us and get us up to speed in gardening in the desert. And they grew some out for us as well. They've always been really, really excited to help us in any ways that they can. So this is where that kind of relationship piece has served us well. And so they grew some for us as well. And so we grew that throughout the summer, and this past fall and winter, we all started harvesting our okra. We had kind of a late winter, so the okras were drying and simultaneously putting on lots of new growth. So it was hard to call it, but we finally called it. And from those 5 packets, we were able to grow 660 packets worth of seeds to share that we're sharing currently this spring. And the thing, again, this very much felt like a kind of like a one seed, but more of a internal one seed, because we were able to increase the genetic diversity by us growing it in different spaces and in larger quantities, and to be able to bring those all together to make one larger donation. So that was kind of exciting. And so we kind of thought about this, and again, how we could, this first time this okra was kind of more just landed in our laps, and thought how we could be more intentional about this, and kind of thought about some of the seeds that are of our place, and those tend to be harder things to acquire through commercial means, and how we might be able to, as a team, kind of increase our seed stock, and kind of maybe with some selective involvement of community partners. And so we kind of got together then, all the folks who have seed library gardens got together and started talking about this. And we came together, met, and started thinking about just what does well in containers generally, and what things we've seen that would be nice that people have requested that we don't have, we'd like to grow. And we also thought, well, this might be, even though maybe for one seed or something as a larger community seed saving effort, maybe as a team selecting things that are advanced to kind of give us that additional skill of saving seeds from advanced seeds as well. Things that may require some additional help with pollination, and how we might, enlist more garden expertise from some of our community partners as well. So we got together, had that meeting, and created a space online virtually. So again, because it's internal, we decided to kind of create an online space for us to share some information where we were taking notes, thinking about things that grow well in containers and things that we are interested in growing as well, and a place that we can all kind of contribute our research to. And so these are some examples of really terrible screenshots of some of the virtual spaces that have links to how to grow the things, some ethnobotanical information. This year we decided to try to grow tepary beans as our primary seed. And then if some of the gardens have larger space additional space to grow some squash, some Tahana Atam squash called Ha'al, and that were shared with us through a community garden. So this has just begun. Spring has just started. So we disseminated those seeds. We are working on some train the trainer to help folks. And we've actually also we have a relationship with a school garden group. We here in Tucson are really fortunate to have a really robust school garden program that has now become part of the University of Arizona and one of the larger school districts. It's a partnership. So whereas I think sometimes school gardens fall victim to a lack of just resources, this is some really dedicated resources through this program. That recognition that school gardening really enhances the learning for other areas of study. And so we have this lovely relationship with the school garden community and are working with them. Also, they have some of the tepary beans we've shared with them. And so we are growing that with them. And our hope is in this go around to be a little bit more focused and visible, and again, recognizing the power of demonstration and sharing what we're doing. And so using those spaces with signage and updates online through blog posts and our social media and just kind of among the team. That is that. Ours is, again, it's sort of a I don't know if you'd call it a grow a row, but yes, we are working together and I hope to learn some more today from Rebecca and kind of hear from other people's experience with this. And, I think one of the challenges for us in the public library is that we are also doing other work of the library. And so we don't always have the time to think through things all the way. And so I'm really excited to be here today with everybody to share, but also to learn.
For people that came in a little bit late, I am Rebecca Newbern from the Richmond Groves Seed Lending Library. And do you want to just quickly introduce yourself again for people who came in just a little bit late while I'm sharing my screen, Justine?
Sure. I am Justine Hernandez. I am a librarian with the Pima County Public Library Seed Library in Tucson, Arizona.
And I am Rebecca Newbern with the Richmond Groves Seed Lending Library in the San Francisco Bay Area, the traditional unceded territory of the Ohlone people. So we've gone through a number of iterations on the Grow a Row program. I don't know if I would say that we have it down yet, but each year it's kind of like we learn some stuff, we decide that didn't work so well, and that maybe was something what we should continue to do. So I'm going to just kind of like go through kind of our process of what we did. And just to kind of come back to the land acknowledgement, if you happen to be in the area that is the traditional land of the Ohlone people, there is a way to kind of support the community that is indigenous to the area by paying a land tax to help support the community. So it's one thing to do it's really important that we do the land acknowledgement, but we also want to figure out how, like Justine's community is working with them to figure out how to really amplify their voices. So really thinking, how can we do that in our communities? It's one thing to acknowledge, but also how do we really kind of be there, present, and be allies for rematriation. So just kind of back to the slide. So we have gone through a lot of languaging and totally open to hearing what people think. We've done be a seed steward, but we've also talked about, like, while stewardship is definitely a value that we share, not everybody resonates with stewardship, or the concept, or even like for some people that doesn't really, especially in a community where there's a lot of people coming from different spaces, the stewardship doesn't even necessarily ring a bell. So we thought maybe this year we're trying like the word seed, the concept of seed hero instead, but that's just kind of another iteration of our process here. So we started in 2015. I mean, our library has been around since 2010, but we started our first grow row. We've gone through a couple names. It was cultivate a crop, but then same thing. We didn't think that cultivate necessarily kind of was as accessible to people. So we're just trying to really make the language more inclusive and accessible to people. So grow row seemed more kind of in line, and we liked the fact that it rhymed too. So we started in 2015 with this kind of grow row type process. We had lots of things to choose from, and we had 14 people that were new to seed saving sign up. I can't remember how many people actually signed up, but I just remember there were 14 people that had never saved seeds before. So we were like, yay, we got 14 new people, on board. And our idea behind this was to, one, build more of a local seed stock and a community of seed savers. And, as Justine mentioned with the Yuma red ochre, sometimes we have things that are really special in our community. And if someone gives us something really special, if we just put it back in the seed library, with the returns as they often are in seed libraries, that may never come back to us and we might lose something that's really special. So kind of that grow a row program also came into the idea of, if someone gives us something special, we want to be able to have enough quantity to give out to the community that we're not worried about if it doesn't come back, that we've got people that are growing it specifically to share. So that's kind of one of the parts why the Grow Row program started for us. So this was kind of our first iteration. We had, like I said, lots of species. And with that, we were trying to be really, because when you give someone a seed packet, it doesn't have all the information that something from a commercially grown variety would have. So we were trying to kind of fill that gap by, here's the planting instructions, and here's the seed saving instructions, and here's the harvesting instructions. And so we had these the purpose isn't really to see everything on this list, but just to see that this is a pretty detailed letter. And we did this for every crop we were doing. And we also put in fava beans and then the variety name. And so this was filled out for every single variety. And so if someone borrowed 3 different crops, they'd be getting one for fava beans and one for peas. And so to do all of that writing and creation was a lot of work. And we did not have a lot of time to follow through. So that's kind of where people sign up, but the follow through emails and that didn't happen as much. And we got some feedback, but it wasn't really really that much. And that was a lot on us for not following through. So then our kind of second iteration was, we worked on this idea of like, well, when should we be giving these things out to plant? And yeah, just as I see the comment. So everyone's going to get this, you'll get the slide deck, and you'll get a recording as well as the worksheet at the end. So all of this is going to be provided. So we created this planting times guide with a bunch of local experienced growers and seed savers. So I just want to give a shout out to Sarah McCammett and Electra of the Community Seed Exchange in Sebastopol, and then Steve Peters of Seed Revolution, who's also with Organic Seed Alliance. And then we have a local person in our group, Annie Jensen, who is the former propagator of a local nursery. So she was planting, so she knew when to plant, but also being a seed saver, she also knew when to plant stuff as well. So I'm going to just kind of show kind of what we worked on. And once again, this is a regional guide, and you'll get all these resources as well. And actually, Monique, so we have 2 people in the chat. We have Monique and Linda. So if one of you could maybe put this in the chat, that'd be great. So here is kind of our regional guide to just planting. So we had like, when do we plant things? So, and then we also had it broke down by month. So, because we're putting things in the seed library, we had like during the pandemic, we also had like 13 seed libraries in the community. So we're only putting things out that could be planted at that time. So we'd be like, oh, it's now April. So let me go to my April. So these are the things that I would be putting out in the seed library annexes through the community. So we weren't putting things that wouldn't be as successful if they planted it at that time. So we first started with this planting times guide. And once again, this is San Francisco based. So if you're not in San Francisco, this is, not going to be the most useful thing, but you can at least kind of see what we were doing. And then from there, we took that list, and then we're like, okay, so this is when we can plant stuff. So I can plant amaranth April, May, and June and July here. But when is actually the appropriate time to plant it for seed saving? Because sometimes when you plant seeds, the time for ripening the seeds is going to be a lot longer. For example, lettuce, you can plant it almost any month of the year here in the San Francisco Bay Area, but it takes a long time to actually for the seeds to go all the way to flowering and then maturing, and then they have to dry before the rains come. Otherwise, you're going to lose your seed crop. So we had this seed saving. So we took that list and then we went through again with those same people that were very experienced seed savers and asked them, when can we actually plant stuff for seed saving purposes? So for example, we have like amaranth, April and May. So you can plant it all the way to July, but if you really want to get it to finished seed, you've got to plant it in those times. So with our Grow a Row program, we were saying right now is when amaranth is available. If you're asking for us in June for amaranth, we're not going to give it to you. If you want to get some from the seed library, that's fine. But what we have in stock here is really what we're trying to grow and make in larger quantities. So we're not going to provide those seeds past that deadline. So that's kind of the way we're thinking about it. Once again, you can kind of click on any month and kind of see like this is right now, these are the things that I would be offering in our Grow a Row program for April. So amaranth, arugula. So we kind of did that and we try to narrow the offerings, but still we just have a huge collection in the library. I mean, we probably have like 20 varieties of lettuce, and it's just really hard when you love plants and love seeds to kind of be like, we don't have that many growers, what do we do when, we're trying to rotate stuff around and be like, okay, lettuce lasts for about 3 years. So can we track when we need to be growing it out so that we don't lose this? Because at a certain point, the seeds are going to get too old and they're not going to be viable. And we don't want to give things for people to grow out when they're too old, they're not going to work. So it was a lot of like, especially when we had such a big collection, to kind of like keep track of getting the growers and like high priority, low priority. So we have like a spreadsheet where we'll be like, this is high priority. It's, it could be something could be high priority because there's like cilantro is just high priority because we just go through it every year. We can get like bags and bags and bags of cilantro and it's gone at the end of the season. So even though it might not be something that's a particularly unusual variety, it's something that we just go through in volumes. So there's that. And then there's also the just keeping a bunch of things in process, like the lettuce has a 3-year viability rate. And I think there's a seed chart in there. So like a seed viability chart. So maybe we could throw that in there. So we were trying to match that a little bit with like when's the next time we need to be growing out, and giving us like if lettuce is every 3 years, maybe we should be planting it every 2 years so that it's in circle. But still, we just have so much in our collection that it was really it's a little bit overwhelming. So iteration 3. So one of the other things we did was we went into creating Google Forms. So instead of people like emailing saying, oh, we'd like to be part of it, it's like, here's a Google form. You can kind of check off what you're interested in. And we had a spring form that we kind of did. I basically have the form and then it's like, this is what's available now. And then I had an area below, which is like not available right now. So it's either, it's not April, it's not, May yet. So it's not up on the list, or, things that were from March, we'd put below saying these are no longer available. So we use the same form so that all of the data is on one spreadsheet, as opposed to having multiple forms and multiple spreadsheets. It's like, we're just using the same spreadsheet year after year. So the same Google form year after year for spring. And what's nice about that is, we know who are our growers. So we have like for our spring, we have 70 growers that have been at some point growers for us or signed up at some point. And maybe it's the same person a couple times, but the point is that we have our previous growers on the same spreadsheet. So when we start our Grow a Row program for spring, we're putting out emails to the community, but we're also specifically sending emails to the people that have signed up before saying, hey, we're re-inviting you to the program. Don't worry if it didn't work last time, and we hope you're on board again this year. And there are people that just never got around to planting, life got busy, whatever. So we do, re-invite people, even if they didn't return anything the previous year, because, maybe their situation is a little bit different this year than it was in the previous time they tried. So as I said, we have 2 Google Forms. We've got a spring one and a fall one that we just use over and over again. And you'll get access to these Google Forms. So it'll make a little bit more sense. We'll talk about this a little bit in the kind of work time. And we had people who could either pick up at my house or at the library. I just have like a red crate out front and like people just come by all the time. And what's nice about it being at my house is that if I happen to be here and I happen to connect with people, it's building that community. And that's kind of a really important part, as Justine mentioned. It's like when you're building the community, that's when people are more connected to the project, connected to the seeds. And that's where I think the programs tend to get more traction. Also, sometimes stuff sits out in front of my house for 3 weeks. And it's like, then I'm like, but at least I know it's not picked up. So then I'm just like, hey, it's still here. It's still here. It's still here. And then the other really important thing was Google Calendar reminders, or whatever calendar you use. It doesn't need to be Google, but like calendar reminders, and like auto set them up. So for example, like I know in early April, it's time to send out another invitation to do the grow row, because now we're adding the squash onto the grow row form. So the squash was there, but it was in the like not available yet. And now that it's April, it's like squash is up here in the like available. So we're sending out another reminder saying, hey, we've got this grow row program. If you're interested, squash is available now. And so then we'll get like another like round of people. So it kind of re-engages people. So now we're on like trial 4 of this. Like I said, we're still like working our way through it. So kind of last year, we decided that we were going to do mail or pickup. And part of it was because we were doing a little bit larger of a reach. So for example, right now it's all county-wide and we have a huge county. So for people to drive all the way to my house was not really realistic. And then also there's just some people that just, it takes them a long time to come pick stuff up. And it's like, if we could just stick it in the mail and mail it to them, maybe that might be a 2-3 week difference from getting it in the ground. Obviously there's that balance point of like, 1, it costs more money. 2, if they can't get over here, are they really going to take the time to plant it? So, I mean, we kind of had all those conversations, but we're just like, well, we're going to just try you can pick it up or we'll mail it to you and see if it makes any difference. So we're going to kind of look at seeing if people that got mailed stuff, if it was like, oh yeah, they none of them planted it or whatever. So we're trying to figure it out. But we did have last year, like I said, we did mail stuff out, and there was one person who was just like far away, and she was like, I'll drop it off in Richmond. I'm like, you are like 30 minutes away from where I live. Like, just take it to your local seed library. So there were people that did do the mail pickup. I mean, did get it mailed to them that were super excited and did save. So, and we were not super good about following up last year too. So yeah, the follow-up piece is really important. That's why I said the Google Calendar invites that have, and I would set them up as an annual reminder and have multiple people on it. So I wasn't the one who was sending out the links. It was someone else, but it's just like, it's also, you have to have the letters written. You need to have a reminder to send them out. So it's like, it's one thing to get the seeds out. It's another thing to keep people engaged so that they know what they need to do. And that's a whole other process. So that's kind of where we're at this year, which is we now have a team of people doing it. So there's like 5 of us on this Grow a Row team. And these are like, they're the seed buddies. So if you sign up, and we have it broken down, because I said we're doing it countywide, that each, like this cluster of cities and towns is assigned this seed buddy, and these people get this seed buddy. And so with that, when someone shows up, so we have the Google form, and all the people that are seed buddies get an automatic reminder. So that's another important thing when you have a form, that you get an auto email that comes to you saying someone filled in the form, so that you can quickly respond to them, as opposed to you having to remember to check it, and then you forget to check it, and then someone's sitting there for 2 or 3 weeks. In the meantime, they've gone to the garden store and just bought seeds. So we've got the calendar reminder, and then we've got the automatic reminder that goes to your inbox when someone fills in the form. And then each person is assigned a different geographic region. And then we also have created these emails so that if you're the seed buddy, like this is your initial email that you're sending someone. And then we also have like a little form that goes in. Oops, yeah, right here. So like we have a little, like goes in the seed envelope. So they get a little letter that goes in the envelope, just saying like, hey, we're excited you have on. Here's the online resources that we have. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And then it's the person's like, however the person wanted to be, it's like, it could be a phone number, it could be an email. And so the seed buddy keeps in touch with the person that way. As I mentioned, we have been really struggling with keeping up with our collection because we just have such a large collection. And we're also really thinking about how can we be more resilient in this time of, global weirding with the weather being as odd as it is, that we're still obviously have a number of, open pollinated varieties that are, more traditional and heirloom, but we're also doing a lot more grexes, which is where things are mixed together, and land races. And we have both modern and traditional land races. So a land race is something that's really of the people, and the people that are stewarding and protecting and taking care of. So we have a number of traditional land races. So like I have a Hungarian parsley land race, and I've got, some from the East Coast, and I mean, which isn't necessarily our area here, but just really wanting to support kind of the genetic diversity in this time of kind of like, how do we have seed that's going to make it through 3 weeks of rain where we're getting like 1 inch to 2 inches like almost every day, and it's like, what's going to survive that having just one type of lettuce, maybe that's the one that just got completely devoured by all the snails. But if I had more of a mix in the collection, then maybe out of those 20 varieties of lettuce that I have, that I just let them all go together in the same thing. Some did fine and some didn't. So I have like my list on the packet of like what the parent varieties are, but that's also been easier for us because it's been hard to get all the people to sign up for all the different lettuce varieties. But when we have the mix, I'm like, at least, and lettuce is extremely self-pollinating, like at least, in that it's very likely that someone's going to be saving those varieties, in that context of that larger mix. So that's something we've been looking at, these diverse varieties. And then also less paper, because the whole idea of like trying to give a sheet for like, oh, people are signing up and they're like, oh, they want nasturtiums and they want peas and they want, it's like, 5, 6 different species. And it's just like trying to get it on paper just was not working. So we created just a specific web page for this. So let me just kind of take you to that. So we have the Grow a Row. So this is on the Richmond Grows website. And like I said, we were first doing like the whole be a seed steward. So we might change that to be a hero. And we have everything translated into Spanish. So, and when people sign up for the form is in English and Spanish. So they could and you will get the links to the form. So it's all going to be in this worksheet I give you. So when people sign up, they can sign up for a text message, they can sign up for an email, they can sign it up for English, or they can sign it up for Spanish. So they've got choices in there. And then we have just like basic seed saving guidelines for people. And we're really encouraging people kind of in the vein of trying to keep our seeds more resilient, getting away from pampering seeds. So really not using any, and obviously, valuing organic processes and planting, which is really saying, we want the seeds to be vigorous. We want them to be rigorous. We don't want them to be sprayed with chemicals, let nature do the weeding out of the unhealthy plants, so that we have things that are not reliant on a lot of external inputs. So that's kind of one of the things we're encouraging. Label. So for example, if someone is hand pollinating, we want to know, was this a hand pollinated one, or was this a promiscuously pollinated squash? Like, what are we letting? So it's just, and with your seed libraries in general, you want to have really good signage saying our seeds are not at, commercial standards of germination or purity. But with the individual people that are borrowing and returning seeds, we also want them to be really clear about, so that if people are borrowing your seeds and you did not hand pollinate a squash, like, you should be really clear about that, so that people know that they're going on the adventure with you, that could maybe not come out, true to type like the parent variety. And as I said, we're really encouraging a lot of the open pollinated, promiscuously pollinated varieties, because we have had like 0 people since we started in 2015 return squash seeds that were not in our little cluster of like volunteer sets. I mean, I'm talking the Richmond Grows volunteers, like outside of the Richmond Grows volunteers, people that have borrowed, out of the 67 people that have borrowed seeds, nobody has returned squash seeds. So hence the reason that's another reason we're thinking about doing some of the more of the promiscuously pollinated landrace stuff, so that there might be someone who is going to just save the squash, and we'll get the seeds. And if they like the seed squash, they'll tell us if they like it, and then they'll save it. And if they don't like the squash, they can just, not return the seeds. So I think there's just a lot of fear for people about messing up. And when we're doing the more promiscuously pollinated stuff, there's that whole worry is not a problem. And obviously we have like a couple of people that do hand pollination. So we still are able to do some of the preservation of stuff that we want to keep with the same genetic traits. And we're also being really clear when we share out stuff that's more diverse, that this is a broad spectrum plant. And then this is kind of what it looks like. So basically within there, you could see this is our spring grow row. So it's a March through May. And I kind of changed it up. Like, oh, now we're in the March and April, like we're now in the April to May link. So stuff that was only March is bumped down the bottom, like, don't ask us for the March stuff, And so then instead of having to give out emails about or like papers, like, here's what you need to do, we're just like, go to the website, and this is the planting instructions for cilantro. This is the planting depth. Here's the seed saving instructions. Here's how to clean it, cross-pollination risks. And so we're kind of hoping that we're just doing it season by season. So we've just, like I said, this is our 4th iteration. So this is kind of where we're at now. And we just have the spring stuff. Like, I don't even think I've done the squash. So I haven't even done the squash yet. Yeah. Okay. So that's just so you know where I'm at in my process. So by our next meeting, because this is going to be an ongoing course, by the next, or whatever conversation, by the next time, I will hopefully have the squash one up and running. And as I said, translated into Spanish is really important. Okay. And then kind of what our process is, and we're going to kind of walk through this after we do the Q&A next, which is like selecting what plants you want to put in your grow row, because like I said, we had way too much to select. So we had to kind of prioritize. And like I said, my 20 lettuces is now, I have a couple separate ones, but a lot of it is just one package, so that hopefully we can get more people growing it and saving the diversity. So this is our spreadsheet for 2023, and we're just using the same spreadsheet year after year. We're just kind of cleaning it up. And so let me see if I can kind of show you. I don't think we didn't have a goal this year, but we have Amaranth Burgundy, and then we're kind of keeping track of like how many growers do we have. So we have Arugula Slow Bolt, and this was more of like a mix. And so we had like high, and it's just because it wasn't old seed. It was just, we go through a lot of arugula. So that's why it's a high priority. And then you can see also like we had like, the year, and then we had 5 packets, and we've given 4 of the packets away. And this is one of the reasons we did this, is because we also have 4 people that are seed buddies. I'm not quite the seed buddy. I'm just kind of like helping to kind of organize stuff in the back. So if, for example, we can see that we have a bunch of the Coronis purple has been passed out, but nobody's passed out the Roma bush bean. So maybe like someone might prioritize that one next, because we have people growing these other ones. So it's just a way also to kind of communicate within the different seed buddies, so that we kind of make sure that someone's growing something out. And then we've got just little descriptions on the side, which we haven't done a lot with that this year, because this is like a new iteration of this. Okay, let's see, what else do I have on here? And then obviously after you select what plants you want to do, then kind of promoting and collecting information. And as I said, we're doing that promoting. We have a whole list, and I've created a list for you. So we have a list of, urban ag people that can help us out. We have a list of school libraries, just different organizations and different people that we feel like might be interested in doing the grow stuff. So we're doing specific asks and reaching out. For example, we have this lovely urban agriculture. We have a couple of really great urban agriculture places. So we're reaching out to them saying, would you be willing to dedicate a little bit of your land to saving seeds out for the community? And saying, we have things that we are happy to provide the seeds for, but if you have something you're growing already and you want to save the seeds, like that would be awesome. If you need any support on what the seed saving looks like, please let us know, and we'll assign you a seed buddy. So we're kind of doing it that way, and we've been able to get some larger growers this year too. So that's always a nice thing to do, if you can get larger growers, because sometimes you get someone who you give them, this many seeds and you get that much back, and you're just like, okay, that's going to, not really get us through. And then you get someone who's a larger grower, and they, for that same amount of beans, you get a jar, you get 2 jars this big. So sometimes getting those larger growers or people that really understand the importance of what you're doing can really help out, kind of fill some of those gaps. And they also just are doing it professionally. So, they tend to have a little bit more kind of just overall understanding of the cross-pollination, even though as Justine suggested, we really recommend starting with the super easy stuff, or go the other direction, which is like, if it is harder to save it and cross-pollinates like squash, you might want to think with just starting with the promiscuously pollinated type stuff. And then reminders, and staying connected. And then at the end, just like we're trying to figure out what's the best way, because it's one thing to save the seeds and it's another thing to process it and then get it back to the seed library. So that's a whole other step, especially if no one's ever done it before. So we're hoping now that we can have like a community celebration where we maybe mix the One Seed, One Community and the One Seed, One Community project. If you didn't hear about that, and we do have a class online for that one as well, is where everyone's growing the same plant. So we're doing provider bush bean this year in the county. And then we're hoping that at the end of the season, people that are interested can come and we can do like a kind of a harvest festival where people can bring their beans and we can process them together. And then we will freeze them so that they don't get bean weevils in them and we don't distribute out bean weevils all over the place. But we will, and then the people that are doing the Grow Row program can also come. So we could do processing our lettuce and our whatever other seeds we're doing all at the same time. So that's kind of something we're thinking about doing and making it more of like a, celebration thing. And hopefully there's already some type of harvest festival that's going on. So we're not having to create the whole groundwork, but maybe there's something that's happening in the community that we can kind of tag on to and people can come there and join us there. That's what we did like about 3 or 4 years ago. And that was super helpful. We had to put just a bunch of people came and they brought like big jars of beans and we're like, oh, wow, people actually did it. It was amazing. And that was for our One Seed, One Community project. Okie doke. So, and I just said a little other thing. Sorry, I didn't say it, but you probably read the slide, which is on your membership form for your seed library, just asking people if they're willing to grow out seed. So right from there, you've got a group of people that you can do more direct asks to. So that's just another thing. So at this point, we're gonna do a little Q&A. And then we'll follow with about 10 to 15 minutes of work time if people want to do that. So while, like I said, I have a little worksheet because I'm a school teacher, so I'm always doing great worksheets. That's what I do. So before we kind of start, I just want to go over kind of just some collaborative space language, which is we all have a role in tending to the space. During the Skillshare, we agreed to speak for ourselves and make space for others, be as present as possible, be aware of who is missing in each conversation. Remember that no one has a monopoly on truth and everyone's experience is valid. And as Justine and I were really clear, we're just trying to figure it out ourselves. Like we do not have the, definitive way on how to do it. So we're really looking to see what you all bring to the table and what ideas you have so we can all kind of learn from each other. Critique ideas, not people, listen to our bodies and tend to their needs, give some grace for technological and logistical difficulties, aim for connection, not perfection, and avoid slang, as some participants may be multilingual and English is not their home language. So if you have comments and you want to put them in the chat, and also Linda and Monique, if you saw any things, I was not doing a great job of keeping up with the chat.
Rebecca, Michelle wanted to know if your Grow Row program is connected with the National Movement for Grow Row for americasgrowrow.org.
No, I didn't even know that existed until like I was like looking for other people to be like a co-host, and I was coming across a lot of Grow Rows, but I'm like, yeah, they're doing Grow Row food, and we're doing Grow Row seed. But I would love if those people actually, some of them would actually grow a row of seed and make that a possibility. Yeah. Do we mail seeds outside the Richmond area? We are only mailing in the East Bay. So if you were in like Alameda County or Contra Costa County. Yeah, so it's specifically for the East Bay. So right now we have 25 seed libraries in the East Bay of California. So that's like a 2-county thing. So we're working on, anybody in that area will we'll mail seeds to them. Other questions?
Can I just speak up?
Yeah.
So we have a much smaller library system here. And I'm wondering if it makes sense to focus on either, or as in either Grow Row or One Seed, One Community. Because I think trying to focus on both of them will be a little much.
What do you think about that, Justine?
I think it kind of depends. And actually here in Pima County, we decided to alternate, well, not alternate, so to do our one seed every other year, because I think those are kind of, at least the way we have done them, and we are still learning and figuring out how that works for our community. There's a lot of work involved on the front end, and also those pieces that Rebecca kind of mentioned with the Grow a Row, as her community has done them, that follow-up piece. And so we are doing it every other year. Our Grow a Row, as I said, right now is pretty contained. We're kind of doing it more internally and with kind of a handful of folks outside of the library system who are our community partners. So, just in my experience, kind of having a focus, just because the world is wacky and our lives are full, and not just ours, but also the people we're asking to participate, I think. And I think there can be confusion between the two. So for me and our community, I think keeping them sort of separate for now works for us.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I would say if you had to pick one to start with, like if you were gonna, like, I would definitely start with the one seed, one community, because you only have one message.
Mm-hmm.
Like one email that you need to do. It's like, we're doing this, we're all planting this. This is the time we're planting it. If you haven't put it in the ground yet, this is the time to get it going. This is how you save the seeds. And then from there, and you're going to get a lot more. I mean, even though you don't have the wide variety of like things that people can grow, it's all the same plant. What you can do is if you get a number of people to sign up for the one seed, one community, then the following year, if you decide, okay, let's do a really limited grow a row, you at least have a number of people that you can send specifically, like, oh, we know you did this bean. Would you be willing to grow this bean this year instead as part of this grow row? Or would you be willing to grow lettuce or something like that, some other super easy plant that you can get them kind of engaged with? So I think that that's kind of a nice, and if you go to the seedlibraries.net, and I'll put it in the resources when I send out the email, but on seedlibraries.net, there's a page that's called special projects, and the one seed, one community is under there. And our class that we just offered is there, and the handout like that I made, you'll see the handout for this one. It's kind of similar with the resources, and we do have a special kind of walk you through program, as well as a what do you call it, a collaborative space on Upbeat for that too. Have you tried a competition style? So interesting. Okay, so this is great. So I love this comment. Sounds like, have you tried a competitive style return? The better the return for the better member, the better the choice of seed next season, or encourage returns. So this is funny because we just had our Grow Row meeting Thursday night, and this definitely came up. And so there's this woman whose podcast I really like. It's called Katie Patrick's How to Save the World. Yeah, How to Save the World. So it's a podcast, and she's an environmental engineer type person, gamification. And her podcast is about bringing in people that are environmental psychologists, about how to get people to make a difference. And the last time she had this one, it blew my mind. I think I talked about the one seed, one community, where people had signed up to teach people how to. They were native seed enthusiasts. They all had native gardens, and they signed up to teach people how to have a native garden, talk to their neighbors. So they signed up for a class. They were walked through how to do it. They did modeling of chit chat about how to engage with your neighbors. They were all given a coupon to give to a neighbor to get a free plant, and very few people did it. And so it's we're just with that, it's how do you get people over that lump? So yes, so the conversation, so I think the answer to this is a great question. And I think for our next session, I want to pick this conversation up and have it more as a conversation of do we want to do something like this? And how do we do it in a way that's honoring, so that we really want to respect the sacredness of seeds, but also that some people are motivated by different things. So we were talking about, at ours of do we have a couple of people that return seeds at the end of the season get a special tour. So it's something that's more something special, or do we get something, that's donated from the community? So we were looking at and talking about that, but I'd love to pick that conversation up for session 2 and really see what people think about it. Cause I'm trying to gamify, we're thinking about gamifying our one seed, one community because I'm doing it at the elementary school and the middle school because I'm a middle school teacher, and feeling like, do I want to give kids badges for like, you planted it, you get a little
Mhm.
seed bean badge, like, it's like, oh, and so whatever. So yes, my brain is going there to be. Okay. Any other questions around that or in general?
And to that point, I kind of wonder what folks think. I think in our experience, people like seeing their name on the packet. When we get donations, if people share their names, kind of that acknowledgement of their participation. And with our one seed, we are a library system that has resources. So I feel really grateful for that, and friends groups who contribute financially. So we were able to do yard signs that said, I'm participating in one seed. So you could put it in your garden or in your front yard, so people could sort of wear their badge in their front yard, kind of like those pollinator partnership thing. Like my yard is a pollinator habitat.
I like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, because we're doing the 1 million Seed Savers campaign and trying to figure out how do we get this where people like are engaged. What about partnering with master gardeners? Oh, such a great question. So right after my long grow row meeting, I got a return phone call from the master gardener coordinator for the county. And we're trying to do, so I'll just give a little lowdown on them. So we're trying to do the one seed, one community, and our Richmond Grows is a project of our master gardeners, because half of our, core group are master gardeners. So we figured, like, how do we get them to get volunteer hours? So we decided, well, the best thing to do is become a master gardener project. And then also all the teaching of classes that they did, we also got our class approved as a master gardener continuing education class. So we went and wrote our class, we had our class that we wrote, and now it's, master gardeners can take it for continuing education. However, so we want to do this one seed, one community project. So there's a however, and there's a massive silver lining around this one. So we wanted to do the one seed, one community at the Great Tomato Sale that they're doing like next week. And like, can we just have a box? Because we're going to be at another event and we don't have the bandwidth to be there. And she's like, well, no, because of the branding, and we'd have to have an MOU to do that. And I was just like, well, and she's like, you can be outside next to us, but not on the property. And I was like, we're not there. We're at another event. We can't do that. And I was like, why don't you guys just do your own one seed, one community? And so she was really excited about it. So I was like, the fact that master gardeners have so many touch points in the community, people love to get seeds. That's one of the biggest things that master gardeners, people will come to the tables to ask questions, but they also get the free seeds, and to actually be able to do your own one seed, one community. And then what are you going to do? You're going to get people's information. You're going to be able to email them high quality information about planting, about seed saving, about pest management, about seed saving. And so, I mean, you guys are master gardeners are the perfect people to take this project up. So she's going to bring it up at the San Mateo, at the Contra Costa, at the Alameda County Master Gardeners, and then she's going to the state level in conference in a couple of weeks. So if you're also master gardener to going to that conference, bring it up at the state level and say, we should be doing a one seed, one community. So I've just put on our one seed, one community, as well as this program, that everything is open source, public domain. So if you want to take it and go from there, or just, I know you guys like to create stuff from the beginning, that's also fine. But, we're here to support you. But like, obviously we would love the master gardeners to take this off of our plate and like do that work. So yes. Yeah. So that would kind of answer, that's the long answer of that one. So I think we're going to do now is we're going to go to the worksheet. So we have about like 20 minutes left. And so if you want to put the worksheet in, and so you have to make a copy of this worksheet, and or you can download it. It doesn't matter. Monique's going to put that in the chat. Okay. So while that's going in the chat, so basically this idea is just like just kind of my thinking. And once again, this is not the only way it needs to do. It's just that this is the way my brain works. So if your brain works differently, by all means, like do what works for you. So once again, if you open that document up, you can either, if you have Google Drive, you can save it, make a copy, save it to Google Drive, or you can just download it, whatever works for you. But I think it's important to start with like, what is your focus? So for example, with Justine, they had that Yuma red okra. And, that was something that was special to the community. So like, is that something that you're actively looking for? Is it something that you currently have in your collection that you want to save? So like, this is a check. So the worksheet, I can go actually click on the worksheet itself. Well, I probably shouldn't, because then I will be clicking on something. You'll be making copies of me clicking on stuff. That would be bad. Oopsie, I will change that next time. So this is what happened originally. When we first started, we started with a number of commercial donations. And we were saving those seeds. That was part of our grow up program. When we got commercial donations, we're like, oh, this is a really great variety. And we were putting it in our grow program to make more of it. But then at a certain point, we realized, is that really the direction we want to go? Because anyone can go to the store and get that variety. And maybe what we need to do is look for some lesser known varieties. So we started being more active about like, can we do, and food security was also an issue in our community. So we're like, can we kind of meet both of those needs? Can we provide more food security by having these like nutrient dense, high calorie crops that are unusual? And so we're preserving biodiversity and kind of meeting these other things, and supporting our community by in all these different ways. So you have to kind of think what's important to you. And so you can just kind of click off what you think is important to you. And I'd be curious to hear what people in the chat and what you guys are thinking. What's your focus? Is it food security? Is it climate resilience? Is it like all of the above? And I mean, you can do all of the above, except actually maybe the one that's, all of the above. Yes. And for Justine, you guys have like, obviously with such a harsh climate, it's sometimes really important to like regular seeds just don't work for you guys.
Yeah, we definitely our focus is on things that are heat and drought tolerant varieties, and again of the place, and those tend to be those varieties anyway. So
yeah. And so like that's a nice thing, like if you, especially in a climate that's desert climate, or looking for those local seed companies that are still stewarding those, or finding the people in the community that are still that still have those seeds and connecting with them, that's really super valuable. And then the other thing is, just thinking about when do you plan on launching this? Is this this year? Like you're going to just like, we're going to pick like 3 things, or we're going to do this, is this next year? Or do we want to start in the fall? It really depends on your growing season too. Like we can plant things in the fall here that will then be, ready to go for harvesting in the, spring or early summer. But that's California coastal. So that's might be different for many of you. Yeah. And yeah, like I just to Julie's comment there, which is about, resilient foods. Like we really were looking at nutrient dense, which is like, I mean, I have a lot of lettuce, but I'm like, can I start putting a little bit more spinach in the collection, because it's still a nice green, but it's going to have more nutrient density to it. So those are some things to kind of think about. And Julia, do you want to put in like the going to seed link, so people that are interested in maybe some of these more promiscuously pollinated? So Julia Dakin, who's on here, has a lot of she's with an organization called Going to Seed, and they have a lot of these promiscuously pollinated plants available, but they also have an online class if people want to learn more about how to kind of select and work with that. Okay, so let's look at number 3. So determine the scope of your project. What do you have in your collection that you want to save? So like I said, I would get donations and I'd be like, oh, this seems really interesting, or, or we use a lot of this. And then, like I said, at a certain point, I was just like, no, I just need to start looking for more unusual things because I'm more interested in saving biodiversity. And I think one thing to note is if you're, a lot of people are very committed to organic gardening, that I would say, if you had a choice, I mean, this is from my seed teacher, I'll just speak for myself. If you had a choice between buying an organic variety that was very common that anyone could buy from a, big company, or buying something from a local seed saver that was unusual, that wasn't grown organically, but probably was grown under good practices, although not labeled technically organic, I would tend to want to save the unusual variety that wasn't grown organically and then grow it organically myself, versus getting something that was super common that anyone could buy. So that's something just to kind of like weigh for yourself what's important, because once you start growing it organically yourself, it will be organic seed. So sometimes saving that biodiversity is something super important. Okay, and then let's see. Oh, yes. Oh, great. Thank you, Martha, for putting that in there. So the Adapt Seed Savers trials, there's and it's closed for the season for now, at least, but but you can kind of, I think it's closed for the season. Yeah, it's closed because I have the Adapt for this season. I got the lettuce trial, but Seed Savers has a trial program, and it's different than going to seed. You're just growing some of your stuff out and tasting it and seeing if you like it, because they have a large collection. They're trying to see what they want to continue with, and what maybe they what they need to kind of amplify in their collection. Yeah, so that's a great link, and I'll try to see if I can remember to add that into the, yes, thank you for that.
And Rebecca, a thought came to my mind as we're talking about these things and seed selection, and kind of one of the things we learned through our experience in saving seeds as a team, and being new seed savers among the different folks on the seed library team, was choosing seeds that were easy to collect seed from, versus things like radishes, things where the pods tend to shatter before you can collect things. And that was particularly important for us, because of course these are not in our home gardens, these are in our workspace gardens that we don't have access to, a couple days a week over the weekends and whatnot. And so that was really important for us as we started thinking about seed saving as a collective. Was thinking about things that are relatively easy to collect seeds from, versus the things that are going to be more, wind dispersed or other critters get to more. So those tended to be things like beans and peas as well. Just a thought.
Awesome. Anything else for there? So let's see. Yeah. So also, just like, as I said earlier, like noticing so like what's easy to plant, what's easy to save seeds from, what's easy to process seeds from. So like all these are things that you might want to consider. What do you use a lot of? Like, what are you constantly going through that people just like, you want, but then also like think like, you don't need to go super big. Like we went super big and it was crazy and it was unmanageable. And as a result, we weren't super successful. So it's like, you could also be just like, we're just going to focus on beans this year. We're going to grow a couple of beans and maybe a couple of types of lettuce. And like, so you could go super small and just pick a couple things. And also one of the options we had was, if you are currently growing something that you like, would you be willing to save seed? So it doesn't need to be what you're growing. It's not what you necessarily are offering. And we also have on our list, is there something you currently have in your garden that you would be willing to save seeds from? Awesome. So start small, pick a few things, start with things that are super easy to save, and have a plan to follow through. Because if you don't follow through, there are very few people that on their own initiative are going to be like the people reaching out to you. Like we had like one out of our like 15 people that was always like emailing us and be like, oh my gosh, and this is what's happening, and here's my social media post. So like out of 15, we had one who was super, super engaged. And the other people, some we never heard from again, some, we did. But what I have to say is, when someone crosses that threshold and like joins the Seed Saver Club, they are a seed saver. You get them in with the beans or whatever it is. And once they get across the threshold, they will, like, you don't even need to ask them next time to sign up. Like they will reach out to you and be like, here's our, like I regularly get, there's some people that I regularly just get bags of seeds from now, who are not seed savers, who now every year will reach out to me and drop off like bags of seeds of stuff. So that's just something to know, that it can be a little frustrating, because you get this many people sign up and you get this many people return, but out of those people, those are the people that will be with you every year. Yeah. So that's something. And I don't know if you've noticed that same thing, Justine, with your group, or.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think doing the one seed sort of thing, and we don't have the same kind of, I think, relationships that you might have. I mean, they're not sign up per se for things like the one seed, but definitely as a team for sure. And just the people who we are able to have those communications with and who share their experiences are definitely people who are hooked for a number of reasons, but in particular, just being able to be of kind of service to the community in that way. It's a pretty powerful thing to be able to do that. And it's a really joyous thing to be able to be in your garden and then kind of have those fruits from your labors benefit the community. So
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
yeah, and I'm seeing some more about the trialing there. And so I think that's also something to think about is sometimes if you're trying to get something that's unusual, like I got a couple of like the landrace, I got like the landrace okra. And, I might just ask a couple of people, are you willing to just grow it and just get them in the ground and like tasting it for those, because I'm like you, I'm an okra person, which is like, can you just like grow it and see if you like it? And then then hopefully that if they grow it and they like it, then they'll be a little bit more interested in planting it for saving seeds. So like that, if that's something you're not sure about because you've never tried the variety before, those are some other things that you can engage with people. So you can also get seeds from some different things, and I'll make sure to put those in the link that comes with the video about if you want to get seeds from some like Seed Savers Exchange or this British Columbia program. You can get seeds, but they're not necessarily a requirement to save seeds, but just to test the seeds. And I'm going to unmute Julia for a second if you want to talk a little bit about there. There you go. Julia Dakin. Hi.
Okay. I don't know if I don't have a local seed library in my community, but yesterday we had an event where a bunch of people came together and we talked about saving seeds as basically a collaborative seed project, and it was really popular. People are really into it. So I just felt like there's this sort of demand for communities. They want to get together and grow seeds together. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was pretty heartening in how popular it was.
Yeah, and Julia, just Julia is coming to our area next Monday, a week from Monday, and she's going to be doing a class in our community about a collaborative seed project. So we're going to just look at a community about what plants we want to steward, and then how do we walk through that process of collaborating with each other, and what's going to help us create nutritious, nutrient dense and climate resilient plants. So that's something I wanted to unmute her. And as I said, she's got lots of free resources and a free class on their website. And the project that she's doing with me, and then also, not with me, but with the East Bay. And then also she just did it with Napa County, and she's done it with a couple of Covelo and Pat Sabaro's on as well. That's something that they're trying to do online as well. So there'll be an online resource for people that aren't necessarily close to where she is living.
Yeah, and we're actively building. It's a little bit late in the season for doing it this year. So this weekend and next weekend, we're really focusing on the warm season crops that are direct seeded a little bit later. But we're actively developing our resources. So if it's something that someone wants to do and you want a booklet for how to get things started, both for the community members and for the seed librarian, then just let me know. It's fun.
Great.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that, Julia, because I think that has been my experience and being part of the seed library community, is just that people are really respond to it. It is kind of being in community with one another. I think it really resonates with people, either who are using the seeds or the people who are, taking that next step of sharing the seeds. I think it's a really wonderful, connective thing and powerful thing. So whether it's through neighborhood seed exchanges or seed libraries, I think it's a very powerful way of being in community with people.
Something awakens in all of us when we touch seeds, that's for sure. And when we do it in community, there's nothing more magical. Have you tried to grow a row or one seed in schools? Thank you for asking that question. So I happen to be a middle school science teacher. Yes and yes. So as per usual, like I'm really great at getting the message out. I'm not as good with all the follow through. I mean, I do a lot of follow through, but what I follow through, that doesn't get nothing, not everything gets followed through on. So my last year when I did the grow a row, no, it was 2 years ago. When I did the grow row, I didn't get a whole lot back, but one parent came back and like, I got a huge jar, and like, they were so excited. And it was like the highlight of like this kid's like experience in middle school. He just thought it was like so awesome. And his dad was like so hip on it. I do the 1C1 community, like with the middle school that I'm at, and we just do it through the science department. And like, we're not really like with that. We haven't really been asking for like returns, but just teaching people how to do it. But this year I got permission to do it as a district wide. So we're doing 1C1 community, and we're only a 3 school district. So it's not that like overwhelming. So I'm actually going to drop off the seeds. We're doing Painted Pony, which is something we had actually saved in community. So we're actually returning the seeds out to community for that. And it's super cute. I have students need to do community service. So I asked if anyone was good at animating. And I had 3 students step up, and I gave them kind of the language and what I want. And so they're going to do, because it's going all the way down to kindergarten, and they're doing these little, they're going to do how to plant the bean seeds. And so it'll be, all the information from soaking to plant distances. So that'll be like one comic strip. So I have yet to, I've seen the rough drafts. I haven't seen any of the final drafts yet. So I will share that out when I get that information, but they're in process. They're all showing me the rough drafts. So we'll see. It'll be cute. It'll be cute. So yes. Okay. And also, if anyone has been doing the One Seed, One Community project already, if anyone's been doing, the Grow Row project already, we would love to know it, because we are looking for another co-host for next time. So if you have done a Grow Row project, even if you've only done it once, we're all, like I said, we're all trying to figure it out ourselves. So please feel free to either put a message in there, or, you can just send me one at seedlibraries@gmail.com. And then just kind of lastly, we want to just really, really thank you for showing up and taking time to kind of learn with us. And we do have a little survey, if you could take that. And as I said, all of this is public domain. You will be getting all this information via the Eventbrite with the video and all that other stuff shortly. And so if you could just take the survey, it just helps us know like what worked, where do we need to go, like session 2, what would you like to pick up on if you're, going to join us on this journey together. And, we're trying to get this whole like million people saving seeds. So this is just one of those little pieces in there. So I'll be quiet and let people fill stuff in. Any last little comments there, Justine?
I appreciate everybody for being here and giving us this opportunity to share and me to bumble through things a little bit, but just being here too, I think is part of our process, as a community seed sharing entity. And it was good for me to be here and kind of go through this. And I thank Rebecca for inviting me to be a part of this.
Always.
I think there's just so much potential in seeds. And so thank you.
Yeah. This is my happy place. These are my happy people. Yeah. And so we haven't decided on our next meeting, but we'll probably meet in like a month or so. And once again, it's just, the next one's gonna be a little bit more, probably it'll be a little bit of the steps, but also just conversation about like, what do people think about rewards or engagement, and how do we get people over that threshold? Because it is really, people want to do it, but what are the barriers? So like, that might be just like, what are the barriers? Have you ever saved seeds? And if you haven't saved seeds before, what's stopping you from doing it? So it might be more of that conversation and us unpacking it. And if you started saving seeds, what got you over that, threshold? Because that's kind of what we need to do, and how to do it in a way that's going to engage more people and, bringing us together in community to celebrate each other and these amazing seeds that our ancestors have passed down for so many generations. So thank you again for joining. Thank you, Justine. Thank you, Linda and Monique, for helping us out in chat, and be looking for the email, and you'll be hearing from us soon. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Take care. Good to see you, Justine.
Good to see you too, Rebecca. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.